Storytelling has always interested me. Storytelling in film especially fascinates me, but I've also always been interested in writing, the way a book tells a story. So I'm going to compare the two, mostly focusing on the idea that a book gets most of its story across through description, i.e., just telling the reader important information, as opposed to film, which shows the viewer what's happening instead of telling them. I'm going to compare the prologue of the first book in the series A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, with its television counterpart. Let's begin with the book. The prologue begins. We should start back, Garrett urged as the woods began to grow dark around them. The wildlings are dead. Do the dead frighten you? Sir Waymar Royce asked with just a hint of a smile. Garrett did not rise to the bait. He was an old man, past 50, and he had seen the lordlings come and go. Dead is dead, he said. We have no business with the dead. Are they dead? Royce asked softly. What proof have we? Will saw them, Garrett said. If he says they're dead, that's proof enough for me. Will had known they would drag him into the quarrel sooner or later. He wished it had been later rather than sooner. My mother told me that dead men sing no songs, he put in. My wet nurse said the same thing, Will, Royce replied. Never believe anything you hear at a woman's tit. There are things to be learned even from the dead, his voice echoed, too loud in the twilight forest. We have a long ride before us, Garrett pointed out. 8 days, maybe 9, and night is falling. Sir Waymar Royce glanced at the sky with disinterest. He does that every day about this time. Are you unmanned by the dark, Garrett? Will could see the tightness around Garrett's mouth, the barely suppressed anger in his eyes under the thick black hood of his cloak. Garrett had spent 40 years in the Night's Watch, man and boy, and he was not accustomed to being made light of. Yet it was more than that. Under the wounded pride, Will could sense something else in the older man. You could taste it, a nervous tension that came perilously close to fear. Will shared his unease. He had been 4 years on the wall. The first time he had been sent beyond, all the old stories had come rushing back, and his bowels had turned to water. He had laughed about it afterward. He was a veteran of 100 rangings by now, and the endless dark wilderness that the Southron called the Haunted Forest held no more terrors for him. From some dialogue and 2 paragraphs we have learned a vast amount of characterization and a little about the world these characters live in. We know Sir Waymar Royce is probably the leader, and a bit arrogant. Garrett is an experienced man and somewhat prickly. He doesn't like being made fun of. He knows his stuff and does not appreciate not being listened to. Will also has plenty of experience, though much less than Garrett. And so we know that these 2 characters who have loss of experience are frightened, which tips us off that something may have gone bump in the night. What exactly is a mystery to both us and these characters? So we're curious, and this curiosity keeps us reading. The 3 men are now, and have been, in some place called the Haunted Forest, and those who are not familiar with it are truly frightened of it. There's a group of people called Wildlings, adversaries of the Night's Watch, which the characters have been tracking. The characters live someplace called The Wall. This world building has the same effect as Will and Garrett's unease. It makes the reader curious about the world and gives them another reason to keep reading. This is a hallmark of the fantasy series. If you're not a huge fantasy fan, it might not mean a whole lot to you, but as someone who is, I definitely notice it. Now, bear in mind, George R. R. Martin, the author, has conveyed all of this simply by narrating to us. Martin could try to imply through several pages of dense dialogue and or action sequences, but it would be far less clunky to simply describe the way he has done. This also gives Martin the advantage of being explicit about what he wants people to know about his characters. He doesn't have to rely on the reader correctly interpreting what he's attempting to imply through action. As we will see, the show must find some way to imply, through visuals and sound, the vast amount of characterization Martin gave us in just 2 short paragraphs. Film must also hope the viewer correctly interprets all of this action, or risk confusing and losing them. So this first shot, we see a gate coming up. Sir Waymar Royce is in front, with the other 2 men behind him, and that signals to us, visually, that he is the leader. The next important shot is them emerging from this tunnel, and it cuts out to show how long and expansive the wall is, with it literally disappearing into the distance. The next important shot is also an establishing shot, showing us how claustrophobic the woods are that they've entered. This is the Haunted Forest from the book, but also how vast it is. So this shot, and the next shot as well, keep the camera at Will's head level. We can't see anything that he can't. This creates some tension because we know that he's looking for something, so we're also looking. So this shot is as he's crawling, the camera is right with him, as if we're also crawling. Same thing as before, we can't see anything he can't, so we're also trying to look to see what he's finding, and our curiosity keeps us engaged. Next, Will finds the wildlings, and we're shown very graphic images of the aftermath of some attack, and reaction shots of Will. Then, a clearer reveal that this is no ordinary attack. So now let's watch, then analyze the next scene.
What do you expect? They're savages. One lot steals a goat from another lot. Before you know it, they're ripping each other to pieces.
I never seen wildlings do a thing like this. I never seen a thing like this, not ever in my life.
How close did you get?
Close as any man would.
We should head back to the wall.
Do the dead frighten you?
Our orders were to track the wildlings. We tracked them. They won't trouble us no more.
You don't think he'll ask us how they died? Get back on your horse.
Whatever did it to them could do it to us. They even killed the children.
It's a good thing we're not children. You want to run away south, run away. Of course, they will behead you as a deserter, if I don't catch you first. Get back on your horse. I won't say it again.
So the last scene was Will and Garrett trying to convince Royce to return to the wall because something's off, and their mission is accomplished. Will's tone of voice, body language, and reaction in the last scene shows the audience he's frightened.
I never seen wildlings do a thing like this. I never seen a thing like this, not ever in my life.
That, along with this line, lets us know something's up. One quick thing to notice about Garrett in relation to the other characters is his age. Clearly, he's much older than the other two. With age comes wisdom, so an audience will implicitly trust Garrett's opinion and point of view more. When Garrett delivers his line,
We should head back to the wall. Our orders were to track the wildlings. We tracked them. They won't trouble us no more.
his language and tone of voice are calm and level. He's not freaking out like Will is. This lends him some credibility points because he appears to be thinking clearly. When Royce disagrees,
You don't think he'll ask us how they died? Get back on your horse.
Garrett is visibly upset. He wasn't expecting to know. This helps drive home the point that he thinks this is a bad idea. Now, we know Will isn't lying, and the character that seems to have the most experience trusts Will's judgment as well. Royce, it seems, does not. We know that he's in charge. The way he behaves during this scene really informs the audience of his character and tells us what to think and believe about his decisions. I want to look at a few specific examples that I believe speak for themselves. Watch and listen.
Do the dead frighten you? Get back on your horse. It's a good thing we're not children, if I don't catch you first.
What a prick. Let's do a quick recap of what both the book and the show have tried to convey. Garrett and Will are two experienced rangers who want to go home after completing a mission because they sense something is wrong. Their leader, Sir Walter Royce, doesn't share the sense of unease the other two men have. This leads him to mock them for their fear and order them to continue. We have no reason to dislike Will and Garrett, and in the show, we know Will is telling the truth. The way Royce acts, we probably don't like him. However, just like him, we're curious to see what's wrong, so we'll continue to watch or read. In the book, these details were conveyed mostly through well-written description and some dialogue. The TV show has to use sight and sound to convey all the details and hope the reader understands what's happening. And aside from a few outliers, this is the way most stories of these two types are done.